Okay guys, we're back. And this is my trip where I put in at Port Mansfield and went up to the Landcut. So this is going to be Port Mansfield Landcut Part 1. So I put in at Port Mansfield and went all the way to the Landcut, which is just right under 20 miles, about 19.6, I believe, miles exactly from Port Mansfield, the Landcut is. So it's just right under 20 miles. And it's a pretty long distance to travel on a boat. Back in the day when I had my Dargo, I had a 34-gallon fuel tank on that old Dargo 170 Scout. I could put in at Arroyo City and I could shoot all the way to the Landcut and come back. Well, with this show water, all I can fit under that console, I'm working on trying to get a little bit bigger fuel cell to put under there. But right now, the only thing that really fits is a 19-gallon. So I can't put in, because Arroyo City is my favorite place. That's where I love to put in and fish the lower Laguna Madre. But due to fuel restrictions on distances, I'm limited. Because see, I can put in there and I can go to the island no problem and back no problem. But I can't put in at Arroyo City and go all the way to the Landcut and come back. I just won't have enough fuel. So how I remedy that is, as you can see, I put in at Port Mansfield. So this is the old boat ramp there at Port Mansfield. It's been there forever, since I can remember growing up as a kid. And we're putting in here in the in Port Mansfield, and it'll be the Redfish Bay. So it's an idle only zone, so you can't take off like you do at Arroyo City. This is idle only in the harbor. And as you can see, the wind's already blowing. This was done, I think I did this about 3-4 years ago, I believe. Maybe longer, it might be a little bit longer than that. But I was feeling pretty confident about the boat. I'd already been in the boat for a few years now, and things were going pretty good. So I'm like, I want to get back to my old routine. I want to shoot up and go fish north of Port Mansfield like I used to do back in the day. Go hit the Landcut, go hit Gladys Hoe, go hit Mile 9 Hoe, all those places, man. All up and down the Landcut. And so I kind of had a false sense of security that everything was fine on my boat, because everything was running good. I was putting in at Port Mansfield, at Arroyo City, and I was putting in down at the island, and I was shooting all over the place. And the only thing that I had was the failure on the jack plate. The relays, had some corrosion in them, so the jack plate stopped working. So I bought a whole new wiring harness, rewired it up, and got the jack plate back online. So other than that, I was feeling pretty good about the boat. That it's pretty solid. It's not going to break down. I'm going to be able to count on it to start and to get me back. Well, this trip here is where everything starts to unravel on the boat. On this trip, and not really on the trip out. Trip out, it ran beautifully. On the trip back, that's when everything unravels for me. And I start having all these issues that I've had up to this point, and that's why I'm replacing the motor and upgrading everything. Because I was left stranded out in Redfish Bay, about 7-8 miles north of Port Mansfield. The boat broke down on the way back. I had planned this outing, because see, what I used to do back in the day, I'd go out and I'd camp out there on the spoil banks and the Landcut and fish multiple days, several days. So I had scheduled to where I had like 4 days off. And so I had all my camping gear. I had my generator for the lights, because we're going to do some night fishing. I had everything. We're all loaded up, Cassie and me, ready to go. And we're going to head out and go back to my old stomping grounds that I used to fish way back in the, in the 90s and early 2000s. But, fate that it may be, it worked fine heading out. No issue with the boat all the way up there. It was the next day when I was going to go to Gladys Hole, and drift fish Gladys Hole was the first sign of trouble. But let's just start here. So here we are. We're in the harbor, Port Mansfield. As you can see, the wind's already blowing. This is March, but the wind is still coming out of the north. So it was still cool. It wasn't really warm. It was cool. As you can see, I have a hoodie on, so it was still a little cool. And it did cool down at night. But the sun was out in the day, and it was clear skies. It was a beautiful day. So I'm thinking, hey, we're gonna go try it out. We're gonna pick some spots, see what what it yields and what it produces. And I'm just going by memory when I used to go up there. So I already judged the miles per gallon that the motor was getting, and I saw that if I put in at Port Mansfield, I would be able to make it up to the Landcut, because it's only just right under 20 miles. It's 19 point something miles, but it's just right under 20 miles over there, and easy 20 miles back, and I'll have plenty of fuel. But I wouldn't have enough to go all the way to Roy City. I wouldn't have enough to make it there, to put in and out of there. The last time that I put in Port Mansfield, this was back in 1991, I believe. 91, 92. And I was in a buddy's boat. It was a tri-hull Invader, was what it was. And I had borrowed it from his dad, because I used to go out fishing with his dad in that boat down in the ship channel. He used to work for Marathon Laternal, and we used to fish up along those oil rigs and all that stuff, and then back in that basin, because they got a really deep basin that's like 60 feet deep back in there where they work on all them oil rigs. And I used to ride with him on his boat, which was a 1971, 72 Invader, was what it was. That thing took 3 feet of water to draft. You know what I mean? Had old 70 Evinrude motor on it. So I'd borrowed that to come and go fish the east cut here, where the Gulf of Mexico comes into the bay here at the jetties here. And we put in, there's me and a friend of mine, and we shot out there, and we were drifting out there in the deeper water, because it doesn't go to the flats. It's not a flats boat, but along the channel's edge and stuff. And we were catching drum, catching a few trout, mainly drum. That's what we caught that day, mainly drum. And the propeller spun off it. So I guess the cotter pin that was in there came loose, and we lost the whole propeller. So we were lucky that day that the wind was blowing out of the kind of northeast, and we just drifted back. So when we fished, as we drifted back, we fished, and it drifted me onto a little beach just south of Port Mansfield. And the boat drifted up there, and so then I had to walk back to the boat dock, which is the one you just saw that I put in, to pick up my truck. And I was lucky that the trailer had a breakaway. It was a breakaway trailer. It broke in the middle. So I drove my truck down to that beach, and we just backed it off and broke the trailer, and then we pushed it up and wrenched it right up on there and got it up and got it out of there. I had to get another prop for the boat. So that was always left a, how should I say, a bad taste in my mouth. So I don't really put in at Port Mansfield. I always put it in at Roy City, and I'd shoot past Port Mansfield and stay in the flats and go all the way up to the Landcut. That's how I used to do it in my Dargle. But I don't have the option in this boat right now at the moment. I'm looking at getting a bigger tank, but it's not going to be much bigger. I think the biggest I can get to fit in there by my measurements is going to be only a 29 gallon. And I'd rather have like a 35 to 40 gallon fuel tank. That way I know I have plenty of fuel. But this is Redfish Bay. Redfish Bay is a big bay, and it's probably the roughest bay that we have down here. So I'm going to cut across Redfish Bay and cut across the intercoastal waterway to hit the flats, and then I'm going to ride in the flats all the way up there, because if not, I'll take a pounding. As you can see, you see how we're taking a pounding there? You got to remember, I got a flat bottom boat. It's a flats boat. It's not made for this kind of water, this chop. So I mean, it'll go through it, but you're going to take a beating. And Cassie and me, we're taking a pretty good beating there. But we're gonna cut across and we're gonna get into the flats, and then it'll be smooth riding the rest of the way up there. We just got to get out, get across the channel, and get into the flats. But as you can see, it's a clear day. It was a chilly day. It was probably only in the 60s, maybe low 70s, and it was going to cool down that night. And I already had my tent, my camping gear, the whole plans. We were going to, you know, make a fire, all this kind of stuff. I was going to do like I used to do in camp out on the spoil banks up in the Landcut. If you're in the Landcut, on the west side of the Landcut, that's private property. That's all the ranches, whether it's Kennedy Ranch, Utility Ranch, Kennedy Ranch, whatever it is, you know. But the right side are spoil banks. And then you have a mud flat, which has water in it at sometimes, and then sometimes it's dry, and then you have the island on the other side of that. So you can pretty much camp up and down those spoil banks anywhere. There's a lot of cabins up there that people have had up there for years, and it's out in the middle of nowhere. So this is, you're out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, you break down, you're in trouble, man, because you're out in the middle of nowhere. So it's a very remote place. So you just got to make sure your boat's in order, and that it's running really good before you would attempt to go fishing in this area, because it's very remote. I think I saw maybe 2-3 people when I went up there that day, and then the next day there were a few more. They were all out there drift fishing Gladys Hole. But I didn't even get to make it over there, which is another story which we'll talk about probably in the next video. But right here, this is where we're heading out. So we're cutting across. I want to get out of this deep water so I don't have to take this beating. I want to get across I'm cutting a diagonal across Redfish Bay. I want to cross the intercoastal waterway, and then right on the other side of the intercoastal waterway are the flats, just like what's at Arroyo City, shallow water, real shallow water. And I want to get in there, and then I'm going to run that shallow water, the 18 or so miles, 17 or so miles, all the way up into the Landcut. See, look at the beating we're taking. Cassie's hanging on down there somewhere with all 4 paws clawed in, trying to hang on. But that's one thing. That's one downside about a flats bottom boat, is that it rides on top of the water. It doesn't cut through the water. The reason why you can get so shallow is because it rides on top, and it's not like a V-hull where it's going to cut the water and slice it as you hit the waves. So it's a trade-off. Like I say, you just got to decide what kind of fishing you're going to do. And I love flats fishing, so I have to live with the trade-off that I have. Now here we are. We're in the flats. So I cut it off, and this is the flats. You see how smooth the boat's riding? No issue, man. Just like the flats out at Arroyo City, it's the same there. And I made a big arc. I went into the flats, and I just made a nice big bell curve right into the channel. And you can see there's that one cabin on the island, and then the intercoastal waterways on the other side of this island right here, this spoil dump. And we're going to be right into the intercoastal waterway. And if you look off to the left where the sun is setting, over there, that would be Gladys Hole. Over there, another good fishing spot. That's right before you get into the Landcut. And then there's a huge sandbar that runs on the left side of that channel all the way over to Gladys Hole. So you have to really watch that, because you'll run aground pretty quick. But I used to fish up in this area a long time ago. I used to camp up in here. Back in the day, we used to hunt the spoil banks back up in here long time ago. You're talking back in the 80s, you know, early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. Very good fishing spot. And, you know, I started having a lot of issues. So, one, the humidity and the moisture at night, it ruined I had like some SD cards where I was night fishing, and I don't have any of that footage where I caught trout. All that got corrupted. My charger for my phone was ruined. I ruined a lot of stuff on this trip. It messed up a lot of stuff, because of the moisture that was in the air. I only thing that I have of the night fishing is from my drone. That's the only thing that I have off of there. But I did catch trout at night fishing in the lights. Um, but you're not going to see it in here because the file was all corrupted, and I couldn't use any of the footage. I couldn't even recover it because the SD card was bad. And this is when I still have my GoPro 6, so that's another reason why I don't use my GoPro 6. This is my GoPro 6 camera that's being used here in this one. So here we are. We're right into the Landcut now. This is about 20 miles north of Port Mansfield. And you can start seeing the cabins are coming up. You can see the windmills off to the port side, way off there in the distance on the Kennedy Ranch. And here's the channel marker, so I'm lined right up in the channel marker. I came out of the flats and right into the channel. And see, these guys are right on that sandbar. You see how that guy's standing there? He's only in like ankle deep of water. That whole area is only about ankle deep. So I don't know what that. I guess they went up on it and they got stuck, and they were pushing the boat back. So they didn't realize there was a big sandbar there, but there's a humongous sandbar there. You can't just shoot straight across to get to Gladys Hole from there. You got to go down, go around the sandbar, and then come in. Way off to the left. And these are the houses. So what I'm doing here is I'm looking for a place that's going to be good to park the boat. And like I said, originally I have my tent. I was going to set up with the tent and get a fire going, catch some fish, cook some fish, all that kind of stuff. I was going to videotape all that, but it didn't work out that way. It just everything went kind of downhill, man, after the night when the next morning came, because it was going to be a multiple day excursion out there, and I only stayed one night. That's all I did, because then I started having issues with the boat and I needed to come back because I didn't want to be stranded, and I didn't even make it back. It ended up breaking down before I could even get back. But you'll find there's a lot of cabins up and down here, and it's interesting, most of the cabins that are in this area, they aren't on the water, they're on the land, they're on the actual spoil bank. Whereas the ones that are down towards Arroyo City and south of Port Mansfield, they're out in the water, you know, along the intercoastal. But these are offset on the land. So it's pretty neat, pretty interesting, you know. So I'm thinking, where's a good spot? Because I know barges come through there at night, and wherever I pick, I need to pick a good spot, because when the barge comes through, it sucks all the water down. And so wherever I park my boat, I just have to make sure that it doesn't get that it doesn't end up sitting on something that'll damage the hull. And so that's what I'm checking. I gotta straighten out the camera from taking the beating so you guys can see better. But you can catch everything just like you can catch on the lower LagunaMadre, but you can catch it bigger here. There's a lot of big fish that move through the channel here. A lot of big drum, a lot of big reds, a lot of big trouts along the bank. And usually on the west or east, west side of the bank is the better fishing side for the trout, because it drops off. It's more of a straight drop off on the west side, whereas on the east side, it kind of tapers off and goes down. So I'm just scouting the area, trying to figure out, I want to pick a good spot. And this spot right here where it goes up into this channel here looks like a good spot. I'm thinking, hey, I'll go back up into this cove. And that's what I'm thinking. And you see how it goes back up into that little cove? I'm thinking, hey, that would be a good spot off of that point there somewhere, either on the left or the right, to set up camp. But then what I notice is I'm trying to not get wet. So see, I'm checking for depth. I want to see how deep it is. What I notice is I'm really going to have to get wet. I'm not going to be able to get the boat up close enough to the shoreline. And I would have to get out and get wet to walk everything over there for the campsite. So I'm going to turn around. Actually, I may go down a little bit further, and then I do turn around and I come back, because what I had spotted before is I had spotted an old dilapidated pier that the cabin had been blown away by one of the hurricanes. It was just gone, and all that was left there was like a little storage shed, and then an old pier that was falling apart. And I need to make a decision fast because the sun's going down, and I need to get somewhere, get parked, get set up, and get things going. So that decision needs to get made pretty quick, where we're going to tie off to. And I do find, like I say, you're going to see, I find a pier, an old dilapidated, broken down pier where the house has been blown away. Because I really don't like tying off to anybody's regular cabin where they're, that looks like that's being used, that's been taken care of. The only time I do anything like that is if I was in a serious situation like a storm or something and I had to get off the water. But other than that, if the weather's good, I would rather just be either on the embankment there if I could get close enough, or find one that's been ran down that nobody's using anymore. So I go up here a little bit and I see one where everything's collapsed, but the cabin looks still pretty good. And I thought about that one first, and then I'm like, nah, the cabin's still standing. So I'm going to go back to the one that I saw coming in where the cabin wasn't standing at all. But you're going to see right here, you can see how somebody's maintaining that place there. So you really don't want to intrude on anybody's property there. So just be respectful when you're up in those areas. And, don't leave trash. Don't be, molesting anybody's property that they have that's out there. Just leave minimal footprint. It's a beautiful area. I mean, it's beautiful. It's beautiful out there. Just look how clear the sky is. At night, all the stars were out. I thought maybe it'd be too much light pollution from all those turbines that are off in the distance, but no, you can still see pretty good stars. So I'm just going to go in a little further here. I see one cabin that I was thinking that the pier and stuff's all collapsed on and fallen into the water, and I was thinking, hey, that might be a good one, but the cabin's still standing, and I said, like, nah, I don't want to be on anybody's property. So I'm going to go back here in a minute. You'll see. I'm just scouting it, looking along this bank. Because see this edge, that water gets real shallow, so I won't be able to get the boat, because you got to remember it's high tide and the tide's going to go out. So it's gonna, and then when the barges, because there were a lot of barges that went through that channel that night. I mean, I counted at least 5 that went through there, 5 or 6 when I was there that night, and I fished that overnight, and they'd suck all the water right out of there, man, as they come in. And so I just want to make sure I'm in a stable place where I can keep the boat stable, and I'm not having to get in the water to go to the boat. I want to stay dry. In other words, that's what I'm trying to say, because it's cool. I don't want to be wet and be out there all night long wet. But look how beautiful it is. This is the Landcut north of Port Mansfield. It's the Landcut between us and Baffin Bay. It's what separates the lower Laguna Madre and the upper Laguna Madre. So look at this. I think this is the cabin coming up. This is one I was thinking about because it was kind of dilapidated. The part of the pier had fallen into the water from one of the storms. Let's see if this one's the one. That's why I'm looking at it, and I'm pretty sure this one's it right here. Yeah, so you see how the pier is all collapsed right there? You see that? It's all fallen into the water, and even their shed is fallen into the water. I'm thinking, hey, nobody's been out here. This will be one just to tie off to. And then I could set up my tent off to the side out there somewhere. But then I changed my mind. I'm like, nah, the cabin's still standing. So I'm going to go back. Because on my way in, about the 3rd house in, right past the 3rd house on the right, there was one where the cabin was completely blown away. And all that was left, and 3/4 of the pier was blown away too. There was just little sections of the pier left. And that's what I'm going to go back to. because it had a nice little beach head. Good place to set up the tent, which I never even used anyway, so I don't want to get ahead of myself. You know, because one thing I didn't take, this is one thing I'm going to tell you, man. If you're going out there, and it slipped my mind, I didn't take any permethrin. I should have taken spray cans of permethrin, you know, for not just for mosquitoes, but for everything else, because there's tons of ticks. So that's why I stayed in the boat. After I got up to that dock, I got off and I scouted the area because where I was going to set up the tent. And as soon as I hit the ground, ticks were crawling on me. I mean, ticks everywhere. So I stayed in the boat. I didn't even set up the tent. I just slept in the boat, is what I did. And we tied off on the pier, set up the lights, and I cooked right there on the dock, standing in the boat. So look, we're going to go back up right up here. You're going to see it. Look at it. It's beautiful. So the best side to work is really this. Right now it's on the starboard side of the boat, but which is the west side. That's always a good side to fish along because that edge drops right off and there's a lot of fish always moving. Whereas the side I'm going to anchor off on or tie off on is going to be there on the port side. And that one kind of just slowly slopes off. The reason why I didn't do the other side is because, one, it's private property. And two, when the barges come through there, they hug more close to the west side of the bank as they go through there than they do the east side of the bank of the Landcut. So those are the two reasons. One, it's private property. Two, that they hug that side. And I didn't want to be that close to one of those barges. So there's the house. You're going to see the pier is going to be coming up. The house has been blown away, the one that I'm going to tie off to. All that's left there is just like a little shed. And the rest of it's gone. And the pier is like, you know, blown. 3/4 of it's blown away too. And I tie off to what's left. And that's where we stay for the night. And like I say, it was supposed to be a multi-night day fishing excursion. I was planning on making a lot of multi-videos out of this trip, and it didn't work out that way. Because just due to all my SD cards getting corrupted due to the moisture, my charger for my phone went down because of the moisture, and I couldn't charge my phone anymore. It's just, and then the boat, and then I started having issues with the boat, fuel issues, and it just went all downhill from there, man. But once I get the boat back online, I will be heading back out there and filming up in this area, drift fishing it. It's a good area to drift fish. So it'll be coming up here on the port side. And like I said, I used to fish this years ago. You're talking 20, 25, 30 years ago. I used to come out here and fish it. And then in the 90s, late 90s too, also when I had my Dargle, I used to come up here and fish it too. It's always been a good spot to come fish. You catch everything. You catch flounder, you catch drum, you catch reds, you catch trout, shark. You catch everything there, man. Because there's a lot of fish that move between the upper or between Baffin Bay and the lower Laguna Madre. A lot of fish go up and down that channel. So I'm going to head back to here because the sun's going down. I want to get settled in and locked and loaded. Because another thing too, I'm starving too, so I got to fire up the little stove. I took a little Coleman stove so I can cook Cassie and me some dinner. And you can see it. You see where that little white shed is right off of the port bow side of the boat? That's where that dilapidated pier is. and that's where I'm going. I'm going to go in between these houses where this house blew away, and it's just scattered all throughout there. I mean, I don't know who owns that, but it blew away, and they never came and picked up all their trash that's blown all over the place there. There's stuff all out there, just blown there, laying there everywhere. It's just amazing how some people just dump trash there and don't ever take care of it, because you got such a pristine, beautiful place that you have the privilege of going to and staying and fishing. But I don't know their circumstances, so. But this is going to work for me. Like I say, my intentions were still right then and there is to set up a tent, get a campfire going, and then set up the light plant and fish there off of the shore. But once I get out of the boat and I get onto the shore, the ticks are just crawling everywhere. And it's those brown ticks, because that's in the tick quarantine zone, just like it is down at Boca Chica. There's a really big tick issue down there. If you go to Boca Chica Beach, that's also another quarantine zone for the brown tick. And this one here, too, also is in the quarantine zone. So, but permethrin works good, man. If you take you some spray permethrin, it'll kill all the mosquitoes on you. You don't put it on your skin, you put it on your clothes, and it'll keep the ticks off you, too. They sell it. They sell an outdoor permethrin that's used for humans. That's not, that's safe. But it tells you on there, don't put it on your skin. You just spray your clothes with it. And you want to spray your shoes and up and down your pants legs up to just above your knee, because the grass is a little higher there in some of the spots too. But there's a lot of ticks out there. A lot of ticks, a lot of coyotes, rattlesnakes, and a few deer and nilgai too were running through there too at night when I was there. They were out there also coming across there. I was more worried about the ticks than anything. So I didn't even bother setting up the tent. That's all I need is Lyme disease, to catch Lyme disease. But you see how one of the hurricanes blew that pier, because that pier was longer. It went out further. It blew that front section off, the middle section off, and then it blew the cabin. The cabin used to be right there on the starboard side of the boat there, and it's gone. It's all laid out there flat, completely gone. It just flattened that whole cabin out, and it's just all laid there, and it's spread all along out in that area. I'm sure the water level, the surge level, rose pretty high. So I want to set my boat up sideways so I can set up the light plant on the boat. Is what I want to do. So I'm gonna try to figure out how I can tie this boat off so it stays parallel, because I do got to remember that when the barges are going to come, it's going to try to move. So I need to make sure I get it positioned right so it stays in that position. So I'm going to tie it from the bow and the middle and from the stern. I tie it in 3 places and line it up parallel with the channel. And it pretty much stays like that all night, even when the barges come through. It moves a little bit, but it stays in line. And I got to watch how I'm tying it there, because those boards are pretty loose. They're pretty old and pretty loose, so I need to find which one's the strongest so it doesn't rip out in the middle of the night on me. But this is the spoil bank side of the Landcut. That's public land. So anywhere out there you can explore. The opposite side is privately owned land, unless you have permission from whichever ranch that it is. That's off limits on that side. But this side here, it's open to the public. It's part of our public land. And there's deer. There's deer there. There's nilgai there. They swim across that channel back and forth. There's rattlesnakes out there too. And then there's a big mud flat that's past it that separates it and the island. A lot of times it's underwater, but the time that I was there, it wasn't underwater. It was just a big mud flat. And you got to remember that's the national seashore of Padre Island, so that is restricted. So once you go past that spoil bank, you can't fly. If you have a drone or anything, you can't fly a drone out there about middle way into that mud flat. Middle way into that mud flat, it becomes a restricted fly zone due to migrating birds and stuff like that. So just another thing too to respect. You know, if you do have a drone and you take it out there and you fly it, it's restricted airspace. But you can fly it over the spoil banks here, no problem. It's just halfway out in the middle of that mud flat is where it becomes restricted airspace, due to be dedicated to a national seashore and I guess a park or whatever that it is. Which you can't fly drones in any national park without a special permit, and good luck getting one of those unless you're making a movie or something. But see, the water's pretty calm. Nice and calm. Beautiful sunset. I had a beautiful sunset that day. Chilly, a little chilly. Like I said, it was 70s, 60s. It might have already been down into the low 60s, upper 50s because the sun was going down. So I got to use my old strap to do the other tie off for the boat. All right, so from that point to this point, we're already the next day. So I lost all the video footage that night when I was catching trout in the lights, and until the next morning. That's that SD card that I had on that GoPro was completely corrupted. I couldn't pull anything off of it. Moisture had gotten in there, and so I had to put in another SD card, and that's where this one takes off. So you don't get any of the fishing that I did of the overnight. The only part that you see is at the end of the video when I'm going through showing all the signs, is that that I was fishing at night with lights. So this is the next day. Early in the morning, I'm waiting. I'm just going to try the bank a little bit because I want to go over and drift fish Gladys Hole. So I just caught a stingray. Hadn't caught one of those in a long time. And now here I'm fishing the bank along the edge there. And I catch a flounder right here is what I catch. The current is pretty strong. I'm trying to keep it straight and level, but the current keeps pushing the boat to the western side of the channel. And I want to try to stay parallel and work it parallel, but it doesn't. That little old trolling motor is struggling to try to keep me parallel. But so I'm popping the cork, live shrimp, and I catch a flounder right here. And it's kind of sad because I caught all those trout, and I don't have a record of it. Fishing under the lights. I turned the lights on, and then bait started popping in the water. Let it sit for an hour or two and let the bait start moving, and then I started popping the cork out there, and we're catching speckled trout. Biggest were, 16, 17 inches. They weren't real super big, but, they were nice size. They were keepers. And here we go. So here's the flounder. Cast the owner game there. Barked up a flounder. The next day was cloudy. That night it was clear. And then right before the early morning, the cloud cover moved in. So here's a little flounder. And like I said, I'm not a big flounder guy. I used to fish with them with my dad when I was growing up. My dad loved flounder, big time flounder fisherman. But I can make some flounder videos. Go catch some more of them. And we're gonna let that guy go. And then I think all that it shows is I catch one. The next one is just I catch a big hardhead here. Big old hardhead. And that's going to be it for this trip because I start having issues. Because I pick up, from after I catch that hardhead, I pick up and I'm going to head to Gladys Hole and drift fish that. And on my way over there, when I was looking back behind the stern of the boat, I had noticed that I could see fuel in the water. So I was losing fuel on out of my motor. So I had to stop and take a look, and I was shedding fuel big time. I mean, big time shedding fuel, and I couldn't see where it was leaking from. So when I saw that, and I took a minute and I thought about exactly where I'm at. I'm like, man, I need to shut everything down, and I need to take a straight beeline and head straight back to Port Mansfield. But that I'll talk about in the next video. So, but this is where it's at. So this is the last one I catch right here. It's a big old hardhead that I reel in and I catch. But this is when I start having all the troubles with my boat, with that motor. This is when it really started. And every time I turned around, there was something going wrong with it. It ran perfectly fine going all the way out there. And then that next morning, man, just everything started going wrong with it. Fuel delivery issues, crank no start issues due to the fuel delivery issues, losing the fuel, couldn't find where the fuel leak was, but I could see I was losing fuel because I could see it in the water, behind the back of the boat. And when I pulled the cowling off, I couldn't find it. Everything looked good up top. But come to find out, it was deep down in the hull of the boat was where it was at. And it was going out the scuffers. Which I figured that out. But what really did it was, on my way back, shooting through Redfish Bay, trying to make a beeline, get straight back before the boat completely breaks down. The boat just broke down and wouldn't start, and I couldn't figure it out why. There was still fuel in the tank. Even though I was losing a lot of fuel, there was still fuel in the tank. And come to find out, the pickup tube broke off. And fellow was floating down in the bottom of the tank, which I couldn't see at the time. So look here, if you ever catch catfish, this is the safest way. You grab them like this, look, behind the fins. I'm going to show you here, so you don't get stuck like that. That's how you get them, behind those two fins, in front of the dorsal fin and behind those two side fins. And you can take the hook right off and you can throw them away without getting stuck real easy. Because if you've ever been stuck by a catfish, you know how it feels. See? Get rid of him. And that's it. This is where it ends. And I guess Cassie, Rusty, and me will see you guys sometime out on the lower Laguna Madre. You guys have a good day.